Hey folks, Pat that Halloween movie collector back with another top 10 albums from the 80s. This time around we're doing 1985. Shout out to my friend Bill, the Everscathe, for sitting in on 1984 with me. That was a blast. Now we move on to 1985. This was a strange year. I had to dig deep for some of my favorite albums. I mean, of course, the top few were pretty much a given, but some of the other ones and some of the honorable mentions this was an interesting year for music. There's a big mix in this top 10. They're going to be like, it's going to go from here to there. You're going to be like, huh? Really? But it's going to be fun either way. So without further ado, here's my honorable mentions. There you go. Some good stuff on that honorable mentions. And some good stuff coming in my top 10 as well. So here we go. Okay, my number 10. I had no release date. It was released in 85, I know that, but didn't have a specific date online when I tried to find one for this seminal punk rock band. One of the punk rock bands I loved out of the 80s. So my number 10 is Circle Jerks and the album Wonderful. I always loved this album. The song Wonderful is just a great song. I loved Circle Jerks when I first found them, I want to say on the Repo Man soundtrack, because they were the band that was inside the one club that Emilio Estevez was in. And then I dug deeper and found out obviously Keith Morris came from Black Flag. He founded Black Flag with Greg Ginn, and then he eventually left and started Circle Jerks. And the Circle Jerks, I love them. Wild in the Streets was on one of my other lists, too. I think it was an honorable mention. It didn't make the top 10. But Wonderful always stuck out because it was a little bit more mainstream and a little bit more, I don't know, I think the songs were just written a little bit better. So you had Wonderful. American Heavy Metal Weekend is awesome, especially because they're basically lampooning, which I love metal, but they were just lampooning all the metalheads. So that's a lot of fun. Karma Stew. So if you never heard the Circle Jerks, go look them up online. It's a lot of fun, and they're still around as far as I know. Keith Morris is around. You see him in a lot of punk rock documentaries, but I don't know if they're actually touring or anything, and if they do, they probably maybe just stay on the West Coast. I can't remember the last time I saw them over here on the East Coast, but yeah, my number 10, Wonderful from the Circle Jerks. Okay, my number 9, released on June 28th, 1985, AC/DC, Fly on the Wall. Very much maligned album, but the critics were never really harsh to AC/DC, but they were pretty harsh on this album. You know, complaining that Brian Johnson's voice was very, it's always raspy, but like unintelligible to points, and it was just a little bit, I think they even said some of it sounded political, which I never understood. But this album, I'm a big AC/DC fan, so I threw this in there because I listened to this album hell. Because I just, anything time AC/DC puts anything out, I'm on top of it, and I do love it. And this is nostalgia for me for 80s, 1985. I was in 8th grade, so I just remember that year very, very well. It's got some good stuff on here. Shake Your Foundation, Sink the Pink, which also appeared on in the Who Made Who album, because what the hell was it? Maximum Overdrive was on that. But yeah, it's, like I said, it's not probably their best release, but I have a lot of fun memories of it, and I did listen to it a lot, so I figured, what the hell? It should be in my top 10. So AC/DC, Fly on the Wall, number 9. Okay, my number 8, released on June 12th of 1985, the debut from Megadeth, Killing Is My Business, and Business Is Good. I love Megadeth. I talked about how I was much more of a Megadeth fan, still am, than Metallica. Love my Metallica. Don't anybody throw anything at the fucking screen. But I'm just a big Megadeth fan. I just love Dave Mustaine, love his voice, love his guitar playing. And this debut album, I think Rust in Peace was more of my introduction. I don't think I really heard this in 85, truth be told. I heard it more. I got really introduced when I went into high school. But there's some stuff on here that's just amazing stuff. You know, Chosen Ones, Skull Beneath the Skin, and of course, Killing Is My Business, and Business Is Good. So I know it's acquired taste, I guess. Everybody I've talked to they're they're casual Megadeth fans, like, oh, it's like acquired taste. And then years later, not necessarily years later, he always got a bad rap for being kind of a dick, and so a lot of people were turned off on it. But I'm a big Megadeth fan. I love Megadeth. I've seen him probably just as much as I've seen Metallica, and just love it. Turned my son into a big Megadeth fan. So, and this is right out of the gate, a hell of a debut album. There you go. My number 7, released on July 13th, 1985, Rat, Invasion of Your Privacy. Yes, I was a big Rat fan. Love them. And they were, and I tell people forget how big they were in the mid-'80s. They're cranking out shit like, especially from Out of the Cellar and now Invasion of Your Privacy. This album just blew up. And Rat was playing. I think they played the Garden. They were playing big ass arenas, and people don't seem to remember that, which I don't understand why. I mean, great songs. Give It All, Lay It Down, You're in Love. I mean, Lay It Down itself is just like is one of those iconic riffs. If you're a guitar player, you got to learn how to play. It's just got such a great intro. I mean, I'm a big DeMartini fan. Mentioned on the last video with my buddy Bill that I heard that they're finally, I guess they're putting some differences aside and going to go out on tour for a little bit, which I got to check and see if they come around here because I'd love to go see that. But this album is just great. They had some good videos on MTV, and not much more to say other than it was top-notch album and some great tunes on it. My number 6, released on August 12th, 1985. I profess my love for this man, Dio, with Sacred Heart. Yes, and this is the last release to feature Vivian Campbell on it. And another stellar release with him and because of him. Rock and Roll Children you got on here is great. Shoot. Song Sacred Heart. He was still at the top of his game. I know there was some turmoil between the two of them. There was some shit going on behind the scenes. And so I don't think this album was too favorable at the time, which I don't understand why. I mean, it's since become, a classic. But I know they had their differences, and that's why they split up. And then everybody moved on their separate ways, and Vivian Campbell didn't do too bad. I mean, he went on to do River Dogs, which I mentioned on the last video, which, go look that up. That's fucking great CD. And then he's doing pretty damn well with Def Leppard all these years. But Sacred Heart, great album, classic. It's just very nostalgic for me. Same thing. I think this is another album that I won on the Jersey Shore Boardwalk. I have so many albums that I remember from either winning in the Seaside Heights Boardwalk or Wildwood, New Jersey Boardwalk, or even Keensburg, New Jersey Boardwalk, because I grew up in New Jersey. I don't live in New Jersey anymore, but that's what we used to do in the summertime. You go down to the Jersey Shore, and back then you put a quarter down, and maybe you'll win an album. And I used to save all my quarters and all my money just to win freaking albums. By the end of the week, if we were down to Jersey Shore for a week, odds are I was going home with 4 or 5 albums, and a lot of them. And I know this one I won. One of the honorable mentions that you just saw, Motley Crue, Theater of Pain. I remember winning that. And I'm trying to remember what else I won that year. Jesus. I'd have to look through. But good stuff. Sacred Heart. Dio. Rest in peace. My number 5. No release date given for this one either. But it was released in 1985 from one of my favorite punk rock bands, the Dead Kennedys, with Frankenchrist. Yes, if you know this album, you knew the controversy behind it. They wanted to pull these things off the shelves because at the time, for those, when you bought the LP and you opened it up, it came with a poster, which I don't have the album anymore. I sold it years ago like a dick. I sold a lot of my vinyl, because when vinyl fell out of favor, I was one of those idiots that sold a lot of that shit. So, to move it on to CDs. And since I've bought some of the other stuff back, but the Frankenchrist LP, for those that remember, came with a poster by H.R. Geiger, or Giger, however you want to say his fucking name. And it was all penises. It was called the Penis Landscape. And I remember getting this album because I love Dead Kennedys and I'm a big fan of them. And I remember getting it to my friend Brad at the time, and we opened this up, well, poster. We're like, what the fuck? I don't understand why it was in there. Nothing related to them other than the fact that they were just outrageous as all hell. And its subsequent releases didn't have the poster because they got a lot of trouble. Charges filed against them. It was a big controversy at the time. I don't know if I'm sure they've done re-releases or maybe special editions. Anybody out there? No. Maybe they included something like that. Because this is a lot. This climate is much different now. So if you could probably sneak something like that, it wouldn't be as bad. But back then, it was a big deal. This is right on the heels of the PMRC too. So it was the wrong time to be doing this. But this song, great songs. Soup is Good Food, Jockorama. They lampooned a lot of things like Jocks with Jockorama. They lampooned the shit out of MTV. MTV Get Off the Air is on here. The Goons of Hazard. It's just Hell Nation. A lot of good songs on here, especially if you're a Dead Kennedys fan. So go check it out. It's a lot of fun. And go look up Penis Landscape, and you'll see what I'm talking about, because I'm sure you can find it online. Okay, my number 4, released on September 16th of 1985, and you knew they'd appear on this list. Kiss Asylum. Yep. This is in a better position than Animalize from my last review, because I actually like Asylum better. You had the first full-length album with Bruce Kulick coming in, who I love Bruce Kulick. And this is very 80s, this album. They had the big outfits, of course no makeup anymore, but they had these big fluffy feathery outfits, and it was very colorful, the cover, and everything was very overproduced, but the songs were good and catchy. It was just fluffy stuff for the middle of the 80s. I mean, you had All Night was the video. I mean, you had all the hot chicks in it, and you know what the song's about, All Night. Tears Are Falling was the big hit on the album. You have King of the Mountain, Who Wants to Be Lonely. There's some good songs in here. This was a much better album than Animalize. No offense to the late great Mark St. John, but this was good, because the next couple albums, they go up and down with me as far as how I like them. But yeah, I had to put this in there because I listened to this like crazy, getting this for Christmas that year of '85. And just a lot of good memories of this album. I had a poster of this. I had the T-shirt, everything. So just brings back a lot of nostalgia. And like I said, it's some good, catchy songs. Okay, my number 3, released on November 5th, 1985. My favorite album from this band, Dokken Under Lock and Key. Some of my favorite songs on here. Big George Lynch fan, big Don Dokken fan, Jeff Pilson. Love Dokken. This is definitely my favorite album. I mean, Unchain the Night, It's Not Love, such great catchy MTV songs, and just great songs in general. This is what really made me a big fan of Dokken. I mean, Jaded Heart, In My Dreams, It's Not Love. I mean, I could just go on about this album, and I've worn the shit out of this album since I got. Actually, I don't even have the album anymore. The LP, like I said, I got rid of a lot of vinyl back in the day to make room for the plethora of CDs that I have here. But just wore this out. Love this album. Such great, catchy, power pop metal, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's really not like it's heavy metal, and it's right on the cusp of what would become hair bands, which I hate that fucking term. It's right in smack dab in the middle of, and it's right at the beginning of what's to come. I mean, George Lynch and Dokken, they came from that scene, especially George Lynch. They came from that West Coast scene on the Sunset Strip. So it's great to see, because they progressed from here too. They didn't go down, because from here, Under Lock and Key is my favorite. But then we're gonna go to like Back for the Attack is gonna be coming up next. There's gonna be some great Dokken stuff coming in the next couple of countdowns that I do. But yeah, I love this album. Okay, my number 2, released on December 10th of 1985. One of my favorite bands of all time. And this is a sleeper album by theirs, but I love this album. Blue Oyster Cult, Club Ninja. Now, it's weird. This album, I believe it was released in the UK before it was even released here, if I remember correctly, which is odd. So I believe the release date is that release date given is the UK, and it came out in the US right after that, which is odd. I don't understand why. You got Dancing in the Ruins, Spy in the House of the Night. There's so many great songs on here. I mean, if you're a Blue Oyster Cult fan, you got to love it. They did get a little synthy in the beginning part of the 80s. A lot of bands did. A lot of bands started incorporating synthesizers and keyboard players, and right off the heels of talking about Kiss Asylum, they used to tour with a keyboard player for a few years, because that played in, which I have no problem with, as long as it's not overdone. Well, the Revolution by Night from Blue Oyster Cult, that only made it as an honorable mention because it was very synthy. I don't really listen to that album all that much. But Club Ninja brought them back. There's a little bit of synth on there, and they brought back their eclectic songwriting and some really great riffs from Buck Dharma. And number 1, released on September 30th of 1985, third time's a charm. This is the third list in a row. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble, Soul to Soul. Yes, I told you when Stevie Ray Vaughan came on the scene, he's going to be right at the top of every one of these goddamn lists because I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. God, do I love him. And this is another album, just stellar release. Look at Little Sister, Empty Arms, Change It, Looking Out the Window, Ain't Gonna Give Up on Love. Just some great, great down and dirty blues. And this is where you start to hear a little bit more of... there's some more keys in here, a little more piano, but still some hard edge metal. I know the production was a little maligned because this is when he really started to get it, drank a lot, and he really had a coke addiction at the time. So I know it was tough to even get it to sound as good as it does, and they managed to get it out of him because it's another phenomenal release from. Arguably, like I said, one of my favorite guitarists, one of my favorite artists of all time. So, yep, that's my number one. If you couldn't have guessed it, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble, Soul to Soul. So there you have it. That's my top 10, my favorite 10 albums from 1985. Do me a favor, throw your 10 in the bottom of the comments. I love reading other people's lists. Maybe there's something I forgot. I didn't forget anything that's in my top 10 because that is my favorite. So make sure you list yours. And while you're writing that list and you're watching this, do me a favor, hit that damn like button. Helps other people find this channel. Other people interested in music, lists, and horror, and Kiss, and you name it, it's all here. It's a big mouse of shit on this channel. And that's the way I like it. So, and if you're not following the channel, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Don't cost nothing. Be a part of the craziness that is this channel. And I'll be back as soon as I can, and we'll do 1986. 86, if I remember correctly, there's a lot of stuff in 86. That's going to be another daunting one, much like 84 was. So until 1986 rolls around, until next time, hope you enjoyed this. Like, comment, subscribe, all that bullshit, and I will talk to you soon.